Turn around. Hands behind your back." The cop's voice was flat, but the words hit Marcus like a punch. He didn't ask why, didn't argue, didn't even blink. He just turned, like his body had stopped belonging to him, and felt the cold steel bite into his wrists. The cuffs clicked, sharp and final, echoing in the bright lobby of Vertex Tower in downtown Chicago. 200 workers froze in place, coffee cups halfway to their mouths, keycards dangling in the air. Marcus Williams, 38, black single dad, executive driver, stood between two officers like he was some kind of monster. He kept his shoulders straight, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the glass doors ahead. Phones went up all around him, little black squares held high, recording like weapons. "I knew he was creepy," someone whispered. "Single dad, probably broke," another voice answered. A third voice, just loud enough, said, "You know how they are." Marcus heard every word, but his face stayed calm. Because he had already heard worse, and because his daughter's drawing was folded in his shirt pocket. Right over his heart, two stick figures holding hands under falling rain, as the officers led him forward. The glass doors of the lobby made him look like a ghost in his own reflection. He thought of that morning, only a few hours earlier, when the tiny apartment kitchen had smelled like pancakes and syrup instead of fear and sweat. "Daddy, why do you always stop to help people?" Maya had asked, her feet swinging under the wobbly table as she drew with her worn crayons. He had flipped a pancake and said, "Because your mom would have. And because that's who we are." Maya, 8 years old, with her hair in 2 round puffs, had nodded like it made perfect sense, then handed him the drawing for his pocket. Now he walked past coworkers who would not meet his eyes, past a receptionist who used to smile at him every morning, past a security guard whose car he had helped last winter when the battery died. 3 floors up, behind a wall of glass, Rachel Morrison, the youngest CEO in company history, stood at her window and watched him being taken away, her face pale and stiff. She had no idea yet that her silence in that moment would almost break a man who once knew how to save lives. "Have a good day, Daddy." Maya's voice from 3 days earlier still played in his mind as clear as a song. It had been Friday morning then, the start of everything, when life still felt hard but normal. Their South Side apartment was small but clean, with school art on the fridge and a framed photo of a woman with warm brown skin and laughing eyes on the wall. That was Lena, his wife, 4 years gone now, because a pickup truck had run a red light on a wet night while he was driving. 12 years as a paramedic, hundreds of people saved, but not her. And he had quit the next day, because he could not stand sirens and blood anymore. Now he drove rich people around for Vertex, a big tech company with shiny glass walls, and people who wore suits that cost more than his car. Invisible work. No one's life in his hands. That was how he liked it, or at least how he told himself he did. That Friday, he dropped Maya off at her public school, the brick building with faded blue doors and a playground full of chalk drawings. He watched her run inside, backpack bouncing, until the door closed behind her. He touched the drawing in his pocket and drove to Vertex, where everyone already rushed around for the big 10-year anniversary party that night. Rachel walked through the lobby with 2 vice presidents at her heels, tall and sharp in a navy suit, eyes on her phone. People stepped out of her way, like water moving around a rock. Marcus held the elevator for her, kept his eyes low, and said, "Good morning, ma'am." She barely looked up, just gave a short nod, but he saw the tired shadows under her eyes. By that night, he would see her again in a very different way, and it would cost him almost everything. The rooftop party on Friday night sparkled over the Chicago skyline. String lights glowed, music thumped from big speakers, and people in fancy clothes laughed too loud as the wind pushed at their hair. Marcus stood near the edge, close enough to hear if someone called for a ride, far enough to blend into the dark like he always did. Rachel took the stage in a black dress, her posture perfect, her voice strong as she talked about growth and big wins, and the future of Vertex. People cheered and raised their glasses when she finished, but Marcus noticed the small things, the way her hand shook as she drank her champagne, the way her laugh sounded a little too sharp when someone told a joke. In the corner, Richard Palmer, the longtime HR director with perfect hair and a fake warm smile, watched her like a hunter studying a deer. He leaned in close to board members, whispering things that made them chuckle and nod. The rain started soft, then turned harder, tapping on the glass railings, streaking the view of the city. By 10:30, the crowd thinned, people calling rides and heading for elevators. Marcus checked his watch and wished he could go home, tuck Maya in, hear her say her bedtime line, "You're the best, Daddy." Around 11:23, he walked through the parking garage, the concrete cold and damp, his footsteps echoing. That's when he saw her. Rachel lay slumped against a silver Mercedes, her hair spread out on the wet floor, her black dress bunched at the knees. His heart jerked. He dropped to his knees, checked her breathing, felt her pulse, smelled the sharp mix of alcohol and rain. Just drunk. His old paramedic training moved through his hands before his mind even caught up. He looked around. The garage was empty. A black man carrying an unconscious white woman in the middle of the night. Every bad headline he had ever read flashed in his brain for a second. Fear told him to call security and step away, to let someone else handle it so no one could twist the story. But then he heard Maya's voice in his head, asking why he always helped people, and he heard his own answer. Because that's who we are. He slid one arm under Rachel's knees, the other behind her shoulders, and lifted her carefully. She was lighter than he expected, head falling softly against his chest. Somewhere behind him, hidden in the darkness between cars, a phone camera flashed, catching a single frozen moment that would soon be turned into a lie. Marcus didn't see it. He only saw the rain and the road ahead as he laid her gently across the back seat of his old sedan and drove toward the tall building where she lived, every muscle tight with worry. The doorman at her upscale River North building recognized her the second. Marcus eased her out of the car. He didn't ask questions, just tapped the keycard and held the elevator. On the 32nd floor, the penthouse opened into a wide room filled with tall windows and clean white walls and furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Marcus carried her to the bedroom he guessed was hers and laid her on the bed, slipping off her heels and pulling a soft gray blanket over her. He turned to leave, already planning to nap on her couch until the trains started running again, when a weak hand grabbed his wrist. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy with sleep and booze, and she whispered, "Don't leave me, like he did, please." The raw hurt in that last word cut him more than any insult he had heard in his life. He sat down on the living room couch, far from the open bedroom door, and said, "I won't sleep, ma'am. I'll just sit." The rain beat harder against the glass as the city lights smeared like paint across the night. He checked on her twice, once around 1, again around 2, each time seeing her still breathing steady under the blanket. He found aspirin in her bathroom and poured fresh water, setting both on the nightstand. At 2:15 he texted his neighbor to peek in on Maya. "Got back. She's out cold. You're good." He didn't close his eyes, just watched the windows and counted his breaths until the sky turned pale. At 6:58, sunlight crashed through the glass like a slap. Rachel woke with her head pounding, still in her dress, wrapped in the blanket she didn't remember. She walked into the living room and froze when she saw him in her kitchen, cleaning up a broken glass and making fresh coffee like he belonged there. "Did you?" The word stuck in her dry throat, but the question was clear. Marcus set a mug on the counter, added 2 sugars and a bit of cream like he did every morning at the office, and looked at her with steady eyes. "No, ma'am," he said. "I carried you home. You asked me not to leave. That's all." "How do I know that?" she whispered, arms wrapping around herself as old fear crawled up her back. "You don't," he said quietly, "but I know. The air between them felt thick and sharp at the same time, trust and doubt fighting in the space of a few heartbeats. He picked up his jacket, pausing at the door. "I'll see myself out. Call if you need anything, ma'am." His hand rested for a moment on his shirt, where Maya's drawing lay hidden. "You asked me not to leave, so I didn't," he added, still not looking back. Then he was gone, and Rachel stood alone in her perfect kitchen, staring at the coffee she was too shaken to drink, while fear and shame argued inside her louder than any party music from the night before. On Sunday night, in a big house on the North Shore, Richard Palmer sat in his dark wood office and smiled at his laptop screen. The picture on it showed Marcus carrying Rachel through the gray light of the parking garage, her head against his shoulder, his arm around her the way you would hold someone you cared about. But Richard dragged a slider, and the image grew darker, shadows deepening under Marcus's eyes, his strong arms looking like they were gripping too tight. He cropped it closer, cutting out the empty space so there was nothing but him, her, and the idea of danger. Then he opened a new email from a fake address and typed, "Thought you should see this," and sent it to 50 people at Vertex. Gossip, he knew, moved faster than truth. On Monday morning, he went to Rachel's office with a sad face and a printed copy of that twisted photo, talking about reputation and risk, while she stared at the image with fear and confusion in her eyes. "I don't remember everything," she admitted, voice small. "He was there when I woke up. I don't know if—" She trailed off, torn between what she saw on the page and what little she could recall. Richard put a hand on the back of a chair, pretending to be gentle. "That's enough," he said. "Let me handle this. My job is to protect you and the company." 20 minutes later, he called the police and filed a report himself, saying the CEO had been too shaken to speak. He added words she never said, hinted at things that never happened, used his title and calm tone to make his lies sound like facts. An hour after that, the officers walked into the lobby where Marcus was helping an intern jump her dead car battery on the employee level. They took him away in front of everyone, handcuffs bright against his dark skin, while Rachel watched from above, frozen, not yet knowing that the report with her name on it did not come from her at all. At the station, the walls felt like they were leaning in. Marcus sat at a gray metal table with ink still drying on his fingertips, and a mugshot number he could not forget. Detective Harrison, a man with tired eyes, who looked like he had seen every kind of story, read from a file. "Report says you took your boss home while she was drunk, stayed at her place, maybe did more," he said. "But there's no hospital check, no exam, nothing but this HR statement. Anything you want to tell me?" Marcus took a slow breath. "I didn't touch her," he said. "I carried her so she wouldn't be alone in a garage. She asked me not to leave. I stayed on the couch. That's it." "Then why would your HR director say all this?" Harrison asked. Marcus shook his head. "I don't know, sir." The detective studied him for a long time, something in his eyes softening. "Something here smells wrong," he muttered. "But I still have to go by the book. You get one phone call." Marcus called his neighbor first, to ask her to get Maya from school. Then he heard the small voice he loved more than his own breath. "Daddy, where are you?" she asked, and her words wobbled. He closed his eyes. "I'll be home soon, baby, I promise." "Are you in trouble?" she whispered. There was a long, hurting pause. "Some grown-ups made a mistake," he said finally, "but it's going to be okay." "I believe you," she said. "I know you do, baby. I love you more than anything." He hung up and let one tear fall, wiping it away before Harrison walked back in. On Tuesday afternoon, after a night in a cell, he got out on bail. Outside, his phone buzzed with an email from Vertex. Suspended. Without pay, pending investigation. In the company garage, his old sedan still sat in its spot, but the word predator was carved deep into the paint of the driver's door. For a few seconds he just stared at the letters, feeling nothing and everything at once. Then he unlocked the door, slid in, and drove home to the only person whose faith had not moved an inch, back in her glass tower. Rachel sat alone in her office on Wednesday at 2:17 in the morning, the city lights stretching out below like a net of diamonds. Sleep would not come. She had tried to bury herself in work and meetings, letting Richard guide the process, telling herself they were just following company rules. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's calm face in her kitchen, heard the steady way he had said, "You don't? But I know." Finally, she opened her laptop and logged into the building security system with her CEO code, searching for Friday night. She watched herself on screen, swaying as she walked to her car, rain blurring the camera. She watched Marcus rush into the frame, kneel to check her breathing, lift her with careful arms. She watched him carry her into the building, ride the elevator, enter her home. She watched him lay her on the bed, take off her shoes, cover her, turn to leave. Then she saw her own hand grab his wrist and heard a faint sound through the feed. Her own broken voice saying, "Don't leave me like he did. Please," for the next 10 minutes of footage. He sat on the couch and did nothing but stand up twice to check on her and once to pour water. He left just before 7, moving softly so he would not wake her. That was all. No stumble toward the bedroom, no touch that was not needed, no sign of a man taking advantage. Her stomach twisted. She opened the police file from the city system and read the report. Victim unable to resist. Victim 2, shaken to speak. Report filed by HR Director Richard Palmer on behalf of CEO. She had never spoken to the police. Rage rose in her chest, hot and clean. He had used her name as a weapon and her fear as a shield. She dug deeper into old HR cases and found the one that had made her pause when she first became CEO. David Collins, a finance worker fired 3 years ago for money theft after evidence Richard supplied. Fired, blacklisted, and then, 6 months later, dead in a car at the bottom of a river. The final review file said no clear proof of theft, just concerns and red flags. Her hands shook as she closed the folder. Richard had destroyed at least one innocent man that she knew of. He would not have another. Rachel spent the rest of the night working, her fear burned away and replaced by something harder. At 8:30 Thursday, she called in Sarah Mitchell, a young analyst who had been at the party. Sarah came in, ring in her hands, eyes nervous. Rachel spoke gently but direct. "Tell me what you saw Friday night," she said. Sarah swallowed. "I saw Mr. Williams in the garage," she said. "You were on the ground. He checked your breathing. He looked scared, but like he cared. He carried you like you were important. I went to HR to say that, but Mr. Palmer told me I must have been confused and that I could be written up for spreading stories. So I stayed quiet." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Not anymore," Rachel said. She called security and asked for every angle of garage footage from that night. The guard, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, handed her a flash drive. "Williams is a good man," he added. "Jumped my wife's car last winter. Wouldn't even take a tip." By dawn on Friday, Rachel had a neat stack of proof spread over her desk. The real security video. The police report with lies. The altered photo Richard had leaked. Old emails from the David Collins case. Her reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Hair a mess, makeup gone, eyes bright with tired fire. She knew what would happen if she told the truth. The press would say she was reckless for drinking that much. The board would question her judgment. People might try to push her out. Richard counted on her protecting herself first. Instead, she picked up her phone and called the chair of the board. "Emergency meeting at 9 in the main auditorium. Everyone. Or you can accept my resignation now," she said, and hung up before he could answer. Then she sent a company-wide email. "Mandatory all-hands meeting, 9 a.m., no exceptions." When Richard appeared at her door with a fake worried look and said, "Maybe we should talk before," she cut him off. "Close the door on your way out." Richard, she said calmly. The way his mask slipped for half a second, showing fear, told her she was finally doing the right thing. At 9 sharp, the big auditorium buzzed with whispers as workers filed in, from interns to senior vice presidents. The board sat in the front row. A few local reporters had already slipped into seats in the back, tipped off by someone who liked drama. Richard sat near the aisle, still dressed like the king of calm, though the fingers of one hand tapped his leg. Rachel walked onto the stage alone, in a simple black blazer and jeans, instead of her usual sharp suit. She took a breath and looked out over all the faces. 1 week ago, she began, her voice steady. This company helped tear down a man who did nothing wrong. The room went still. Many of you saw a picture of Marcus Williams and thought the worst. She went on. You shared it. You whispered. You stepped back from him in the hallway. So did I. I let fear speak louder than truth. I am here to fix that. She clicked the remote, and the giant screen behind her lit up. The real security footage played, time-stamped, clear. The crowd watched Marcus check her breathing, carry her with care, bring her home, obey her broken plea not to leave, sit down on the couch, and never once move toward her bed. They saw him leave at dawn. When it ended, a deep silence hung over the room. That man saved me, Rachel said. He stayed because I asked him to. He did nothing but show kindness. She clicked again and showed the doctored photo Richard had used next to the original one from another camera. The edit's now obvious. Someone here wanted you to believe a different story. She turned to look right at Richard, and every head in the room followed her gaze. Richard Palmer filed a false police report in my name without my knowledge, she said. He lied to the police, to the board, and to every one of you. Gasps broke out like tiny explosions in the seats. Richard jumped to his feet, shouting about protecting the company. But no one moved to help him. The back doors opened with a soft thud, and Detective Harrison walked in with 2 uniformed officers. His voice carried across the room. Richard Palmer, you're under arrest for filing a false report, tampering with evidence, and obstruction. The officers walked down the aisle as every phone in the place rose up again, now pointed at the right man. Richard tried to pull away, but the cuffs still snapped shut around his wrists with the same hard click Marcus had heard. Only this time the sound felt like justice instead of pain. As they led him past the rows of workers, some people looked away in shame, some stared straight on, and more than a few eyes were wet. Rachel turned back to the microphone. Effective immediately, Marcus Williams is fully cleared and returned to work, she said. He will receive all lost pay plus damages, along with a written apology from Vertex. I have also offered him a new role as Director of Ethics, reporting to me, to help make sure nothing like this ever happens again here. One person started to clap, then another, until the sound filled the hall, not as wild joy, but as a rough, honest promise to do better. That evening, the peeling hallway outside Marcus's 3rd-floor apartment in Bronzeville smelled like old carpet and fried chicken from a neighbor's kitchen. When Rachel knocked, her heart beat faster than it had in any board meeting. The door opened to a pair of serious brown eyes. Maya stood there in a pink t-shirt, her hair in 2 puffs, holding a marker in one hand. She looked Rachel up and down with the blunt honesty only kids had. You're the lady who got my daddy in trouble, she said matter-of-factly. The words landed harder than any comment Rachel had seen on the company message boards. Yes, Rachel said, dropping to one knee so they were eye to eye. I am, and I'm very, very sorry. Maya studied her face, like she was checking if the words were true or fake. Daddy says sorry is just the start, she said. Doing better is what counts. One corner of Rachel's mouth twitched. Your daddy is wise, she replied. I'm trying to do better now. Marcus stepped into the doorway then, taller than she remembered, his expression guarded. Maya, go finish your drawing, baby, he said gently. When the girl disappeared down the hall, He closed the door behind him and leaned against the frame. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. "I watched the meeting online," he said at last. "I meant every word," Rachel answered. "I know I failed you. I believed a lie about you, because it was easier than facing the truth about someone I trusted." He looked at her for a long moment, then glanced down at his hands, still showing faint marks where the cuffs had been. "My daughter asked me why people are mean to her daddy," he said quietly. "I didn't know what to tell her." Rachel did not offer excuses. "All I can say is I'm sorry, and I'm changing the way this place works," she replied. "The job offer is real. Help me build something better. Help me fix what I broke." He didn't answer right away. Behind him, in the small apartment, he heard the soft scratch of Maya's markers and the low buzz of the old fridge. Finally, he said, "I'll think about it." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't a door slammed shut either. She nodded. "That's all I can ask," she said, then turned to leave. As she walked down the hall, Maya's face appeared in the front window beside the old air conditioner, and the little girl lifted her hand in a small wave. Rachel waved back, a lump in her throat she did not try to swallow. That night, Marcus sat on the edge of Maya's bed as she cuddled under her worn unicorn blanket. "Is the lady good now?" she asked, voice sleepy. "She's trying," he said. "Trying counts." "Trying counts a lot," he said. She reached under her pillow and handed him another drawing. This one with 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright sun. "That's you, that's me, and that's the lady you helped," she explained. "She was lost, but you helped her find her way." His chest felt tight in a different way now, softer and warm. On Saturday morning, the sky over Chicago was a clear, bright blue, the first sunny day after a long stretch of gray rain and darker news. Marcus buckled Maya into the back seat of their old sedan, the same one that had carried Rachel home that night, and taped her newest drawing to the dashboard beside the first one. 3 small figures held hands in the scribbled picture, the sun big and round over their heads. "Look, Daddy," Maya said as he started the engine. "I told you the rain would stop." He glanced up at the open sky, then at his daughter in the rearview mirror. "Yeah, baby," he said. "You were right." His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Rachel, writing, "Whenever you're ready, the new job is waiting." He didn't reply yet, and maybe he wouldn't for a while. But just knowing he had a choice felt like a door had opened inside him. As they pulled away from the curb, Maya hummed to herself and swung her feet, and he laid a hand over the place on his shirt where her first drawing still rested, worn at the edges but whole. The city rolled past outside, full of people who would never know his name, who might still cross the street if they saw a man like him walking alone at night. But inside that car, truth had a home, and so did he. He had been judged by a picture, and saved by a story, hurt by lies, and lifted by one woman's late courage, and one little girl's steady faith. He knew hard days would come again, whispers and looks and job offers that might not last. But he also knew who he was, deep down, under all of it. He was the man who stopped to help, even when it cost him. He was the dad who answered hard questions with honest words. He was the boy his mama raised to walk straight in a crooked world. As the light turned green and he drove them forward, he held on to that truth, because in a world quick to fear and slow to listen, real strength is choosing to do what is right, even when doing right is the thing that hurts you most.